We'll go ahead and call to order the regular meeting for the Steering Legislative and Governmental Committee for Monday, February 1st, 2010. First item on the agenda is we need to approve minutes from our meeting of January. I'll call on our Vice Chairman, Adam Coggin, for that.
Motion to approve.
Second. Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. First item on the agenda, Human Resources Report. We will call on our Human Resources Director, Sonia Stevenson, for that. Sonia, if you'll join us here at the table, and we'll get started.
Good evening. The fourth quarter 2009 sheet, just wanted to mention a few of the interesting things. Our application pool was just, because of the economy and everything else, we are getting numerous applications now, which is good because we have a better selection to select for applicants. Our detention corrections position, we're at 232 applications, which is pretty amazing. So we have people who are interested in doing the corrections job. So we've had 422 applications in 13 positions. And our most interesting application came from Uganda. So I just thought I'd mention that. It's pretty, wow. We're getting them from all over. We have had several lunch and learns, dinners and discoveries. The insurance department's done freedom from smoking cessation. We're working with Care Here still on doing some of these seminars. We also have webinars that are monthly webinars now through our Life Services EAP that people can do at their own time. They can do them on their lunch or after hours. And also just to help them with different things that are going on in their lives. Some of them are about retirement, some are about their children, so some of those. One of the points of interest that I wanted to mention, on the compensation plan, we have done 40 revisions to job descriptions this year, and I don't know if you remember last year me stating that we were going back and doing all the job description revisions up through 2004, and this year we're doing 2005s to 2008 so that we can get on a cycle of every other year job descriptions. So we've done 40 of those so far, and 3 new job descriptions have been created.
Who's doing that, Sonia?
We have myself, Elena, and an intern that has been working on those through MTSU. MTSU, Dr. Hine had some graduate students who were working on a program and did some of those for us. They actually took them, went out and interviewed, and it was part of their course credit for them. So it's been a huge help, the relationship with MTSU that we've had.
Are they approved by like the supervisor, department head kind of thing?
Mm-hmm. What happens is we send the job description to the employee themselves and also to their supervisors. They look over and say, what has changed about my job? Is it technology? Has something been added or taken away? Based on, just the requirements. If we had a vacated position and we merged some of the responsibilities through the others, then we've added those to those. And then they look back over them. They send them in with the revisions, and then I read back through them to make sure that, we've not taken something out that really needs to be in there or something of that nature.
Is there a clause in there that's added that would not restrict them from just doing that particular job if the county were to economically just go down the tubes and we were shorthanded? Could we use employees, bounce them around from department to department? Is there some language in there that would allow us to do those kinds of things?
Yes, sir. There's a couple of lines that say, and any other jobs requested. So that's really our safety net. So if something changes and we add on more duties, it's any jobs or responsibilities requested.
Hardly ever comes into play, but this day and time, you never know what might happen.
Oh, absolutely. And the other thing I wanted to mention, which was really good, I went to the state council, and this didn't happen in the fourth quarter, but I was excited about it nonetheless. Went to the state council in Nashville last Thursday and Friday, the meetings, and one of the vendors there that was sponsoring the meeting was a survey company, and I won a survey for our county. So I've got the state of Tennessee's. So this saved us some significant dollars on a salary survey. So this is the entire state of Tennessee, which we'll be using to look through. But I was pretty excited about winning that. Wow. And they've already sent it to us, so that was a good positive note. We have started doing something different with our retirement meetings. We used to have Nationwide come in once a quarter, and they'd set up in various locations throughout the county. Now what we're going to do, he will still be coming once a quarter to meet with anybody that wants to in the county, but in our retirement meetings, we're bringing in different groups. Like our next quarter will be TCRS. We'll be coming in and we'll be doing a lunch and learn type thing. So anybody that wants to come in and ask TCRS questions, they can. They're going to be here for 2 days, all day for 2 days. So if there's any employees that have any questions on that, we'll be doing some financial planning to help people understand. We've got our EAP who offers a free service, and also SunTrust Bank that offers some free services for theirs. We're coming in these individuals, so it's kind of mixing it up to give people a better look on how to plan for their future and their retirement so that they don't end up. So that was one of the exciting. The last thing that I'll mention on this is Life Services, who is our new EAP. This last quarter, they have assisted 109 employees, or 109 sessions, I guess I should say. And these were management referrals on employee issues. So they really assisted us on that. They can have up to 6 sessions based on what the nature of the referral is. And we had 14 different employees throughout the county get management referrals and completed 109 sessions. And we've had 276 employees involved in counseling sessions that was purely, you know, of their own, whether it be for stress or relationship issues or addictions or whatever. We've had grief counseling, all different things. But so our employees are really starting to use this, and I think it's a great tool for them. So do you have any questions on the fourth quarter? No? Okay. The next thing is the packet that's the 2009 Human Resource Projects. The top page is the projects that I had put on our business plan for this past calendar year. Of the 35 projects that I had for our office that I wanted us to complete, we completed all of them but 6. And of the 6 that we didn't complete was based on, there were 2 based on budgetary. The drug screening and the background checks was something that we weren't able to implement county-wide. We are doing those in the safety-sensitive positions, but county-wide, due to the financial obligations that would cause the county. We are using the free services such as the Tennessee Felony Search, the Sex Offenders Registry, Internet Crime. Some of those are free services that the TBI offers. And I am working with the TBI to see if there's somehow we could get a discounted rate because we are a governmental entity. So
on the background checks, does I guess all county and general employees that's being utilized, the fee offices, right? I mean the constitutional offices, are they using this service that the county has gotten as well?
Some of the departments are. Some of the elected officials are utilizing our office to do their hiring now. The county clerks have started utilizing.
No, I'm talking about background checks.
Oh, I can't answer that. I know, of course, the sheriff's department's doing background checks and drug testing and all that. And I know that Eloise is for her people because she has access to that. And we also have access to the county data to research county, just countywide, but not statewide or nationwide. But I can't speak to the others. I don't know. But I know that the offices that are using us to post and hire for them, of course, they're utilizing that.
I would hope that the ones that may not be using, they're using something to in case someone gets, you know, an unwanted type employee has some kind of background that we don't really need. So.
Well, their turnover, that was one of the things I didn't mention. The turnover report was the additional report that if you wanted to look at that, our turnover this year had gone down. And if I look at this, I think most of the, like the circuit courts, one of the office, their turnover's gone down by 4%. County clerk, they had 0% turnover, which is a good thing, which means they didn't have to lose or hire anyone. Elections had 0% turnover, so they wouldn't have utilized that. So as I look, just a few of them. Registered deeds had 5%, but for them, that was 1 employee. So,
The numbers, the sheriff's department ambulance service and
the departments that are already using all these is ambulance service that I can speak to that I know for certain is the ambulance service, the correctional work center, domestic violence, drug court, EMA or EMS, emergency management, health department, juvenile detention, sheriff's department, and youth services. I know that they're already using it before we even started. So quite a few departments were. I mean, it's just very, very few that we've just started doing that for them. They already were.
Is there a probationary period attached to any jobs?
Most of the county general departments have a 6-month probationary period, and of our correctional facilities have up to a year. The sheriff's office has 1 year probationary period.
Would it not reduce expenses, Sonia, if we did background investigations on those people we wanted to retain like a month or so before the end of their probationary period? Just the ones we knew we were going to retain?
I mean, that's an idea, but the scary part about not doing it on everybody, especially if you look at a fee office or just based on the nature of the information that we have available to us, you know, most of the time you're gonna want to know that if they've got a history of sticky fingers or assault or something of that nature. We would want to know.
I'm thinking before, if we're fixing to offer them a position, have the intent to hire them, they ought to have a background check. My opinion.
Well, one of the things that the correctional facilities do is, and they do this to assist the TBI, I guess, on fugitives, is they look at, you know, the majority of their applicants. Where we were looking at was just the people that we were going to consider making a job offer. So we couldn't afford to background every applicant that came through, but the ones that we were going to make a job offer. So that really reduces some. The next page, the very last page on that one packet, was our 2010 projects. And I have 36 projects listed for us this year. Some of them are continuation of the things that we're doing, but it just has a schedule and calendar of events. And some of the things are new and updated things that we're trying to do. Now, with that being said, I might have been overly zealous. My interns will be leaving us in April, and at that point it will be Elena and myself, and I think it's public knowledge that Elena is expecting, and her baby's due the middle of April. So after the middle of April, I will be by myself for 4 months. So this may have been overly zealous of me knowing that, but we will try to complete as many of these things as we possibly can. So just know that anybody wants to come help me from April to whenever, come on back. You guys have any questions or suggestions or requests of me?
As always, you're pretty thorough and giving us the information that we need.
I did forget to mention this. Worked on getting us, we did that walking program with the Heart Association last year, and one of the things that I wanted to get was eventually is a platinum membership through that, where we would be listed in Forbes magazine as being the top 500, one of the top 500 employers that cares about wellness for their employees. We haven't gotten to Forbes magazine yet, but we are in the gold. The next level is platinum, so we've got recognized as being a gold employer that cares about wellness for our employees. So I brought that because I thought that was pretty cool.
Good.
Good job, Sonia. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonia. Appreciate you.
We need a motion to approve it.
Absolutely.
I'll make that motion.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Off So a good start here. We'll move on to our second agenda item. That is a request from Public Safety Committee to address the definition of OEM in the TCA and amendment to it that it only apply to the Volkswagen OEM in Hamilton County. I think Mayor Burgess is going to take up that topic for us.
I'm here to give you the latest information that we've received today from a representative from Nissan, just to give us and keep in perspective exactly how many vehicles and registrations, et cetera, we're talking about. And I did have a call from one of the representatives in their headquarters office about this today. And I'll just basically try to repeat what I was told about how this is working. Nissan started the process of what is called direct registration with the state, independent of this bill that's come through now that gives them the opportunity to be exempt from all of these other registration fees, wheel tax, sales tax, etc. So they'd already started that process, and they have direct registered 956 vehicles. And of that 956 vehicles, 364 of those vehicles were for residents of Rutherford County. So the number of vehicles, it appears, that are being leased to their employees that reside in this county is about 38% of the total vehicles that they're leasing in the total aggregate. And that would project, according to their information, about $1,200 per year. And the sales tax and the $2.50 on top of the $50, that equates to about $65,000 a year going forward. Now, I will say that in many years previous to this point, before they had the opportunity for either direct registration or the use of this exemption legislation that has been passed, it's probably true that they registered as high as many as 4,000 vehicles a year here, but they were registering all the vehicles for all of the employees in all of the other counties of residence. So we got the advantage for a long period of time of receiving wheel tax, you might say, from non-residents. That's the point that they wanted to make. So they have registered this year, during 2009, which is last year, of course, 3,284 vehicles have gone through the clerk's office here. Now, January to July, that was 2,201 vehicles, and in August through December is when they've started this phase-in of the new process. There have been 1,083 vehicles. So they're not, certainly not fully ramped up. They haven't gone 100% to this phase-in of this new process yet, but you can see where they're headed. That $26,000 or so that was mentioned the other night in fees that the state is holding for us and hasn't handed over to us, but may have handed over by now, I'm not sure, was what the same thing they were doing on this direct registration for all of the counties. They were holding the monies in various pots to be allocated and sent to the various counties through the direct registration. It does not have anything to do with this new process that's in place yet. So that $26,000 represented the 364 vehicles or thereabouts that had come through the direct registration process. So I'm just going to give you the information I received. Let's see, they were phasing in this new process on the exemption legislation, and that was fully phased in. That was completed in December, so they're fully phased in now. And we will be receiving it through this process now until they actually get the wheel tax exemption for about 1,200 vehicles per year. They have not yet applied for the wheel tax exemption, but I believe we have every reason to believe they will apply to get permission to do that. They are happy to share any further information that they have or can come up with the commissioner and or our state legislators in Nashville. And that's really all of the information they shared with me.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Questions for the mayor?
I know, and me being chairman of public safety, we brought it up the other night and asked for this to come to steering. Since then, Representative Rowland contacted me. She has dropped something in the hopper in the House on a bill, and Senator Ketron is a sponsor of that bill in the Senate. And concerning what we had talked about actually in that steering meeting that night with them, and also the Public Safety Committee. So that's kind of where that stands. And it was brought up about about the county losing some revenue from this. So that's why it's come here tonight.
What did they drop in the hopper?
That's what I was saying.
A bill to exempt Rutherford County out of the bill that was passed the last day of the session of last year. To exempt us out of that, and any other county that so desires.
So if that legislation passes at the state, then it'll be in our hands whether or not to do it.
That's
Correct.
I think that's correct.
Now, I think if they pass that legislation, Nissan would be prohibited from exempting themselves as this current legislation prepares. I don't really believe that we'd have to take any action. They would just undo what was done in the last session.
Yeah.
Can they undo what they've done so far?
Well, they won't undo what they've done so far, but they would prevent it from continuing into the future.
And so you say it's about $65,000?
Well, at 12,000 units at 5250, it's roughly $65,000. Did I say 12,000? I meant to say 1,200. I'm not sure what I
No,
said.
you said 1,200.
Okay.
Yeah. Needs to be pointed out probably that that's a year, Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's just so we can.
So
think
Gary,
ahead and-
but I don't know, you can't speak for the whole Public Safety Committee, but now knowing that something's in the hopper in Nashville over it, is there anything then that the steering committee, you feel like the steering committee needs to do at this point?
I believe that being that Representative Rowland and Senator Ketron have heard what we had talked about. They're in the process of doing what was actually we were going to ask the steering committee to actually do. So they took care of it beforehand.
Okay. Good to go?
If the bill passed, Chairman, if the bill passed, Nissan could come to us as a county and make their case, in essence, to be exempted, just like the Chattanooga area is, right? They could make a case, and then we would make a decision on it at that point. Is that correct?
I don't know the answer to that question, to be honest. I'm not sure that the county, these taxes, I'm not sure we can invoke or revoke or grant special permission on any tax without state legislative approval. I'm just not really sure about that.
But
I'm doubtful that we could without state legislative permission.
one more time, just so I get all this straight. The legislation that's before the state right now would exempt any county, with the exception of Hamilton, right?
Yes, that's what I understood from Donna Rowland.
And then it would be up to the company in any particular county to try to make a case to their county, which would also, if the county went for it, would have to go back to the state to get permission to exempt it.
I would say that, yes,
Yeah,
that would
yeah.
be a workable
Right.
approach.
See, right now, basically, with Saturn being gone, Maury County is basically not involved in it. It only falls back on Rutherford County, being that we're the only other one besides Hamilton County that's got an OEM factory, in its county. So it really only affects Rutherford County.
But at some point in time, I guess my whole point is if Nissan felt it was important enough for them and their employees to do that, they would have an avenue to come and make their case.
Right.
If they come and made their case and the commission accepted their plea and made a recommendation back to their state legislative body to enact that legislation, it would happen. I mean, but it would take this body's consent and a recommendation, I'm sure.
But they would still, that company, Nissan, would still have the opportunity to do that.
They have an opportunity, yes, to ask that.
So they would make a case to us, just like Volkswagen made a case to Hamilton County or Chattanooga. Or everybody else. Okay.
But we're getting the wheel tax off that? We're not,
Right now, we are.
we are.
They cannot discontinue that. The law requires them to make a request to the Commissioner of Revenue to be exempt from the wheel tax, and they have not done that yet.
Okay.
But there is indication that they will do that. They just haven't gotten through with the whole process.
Yeah.
Just as an aside, I don't look forward to being able as a county commission to grant special, I won't call it a favor, to anybody. I wouldn't want to, I would, but I wouldn't want to vote on that, I don't think. I think that's a dangerous business to get into. But I do recognize they are a large employer, they are in the automobile business, and these are licenses, I understand.
My concern for the other side though, Jeff, is that if someone did it in the state of Tennessee, Nissan ought to have the same opportunity to make their case.
It's an excellent point.
Just like the other ones did. Doesn't mean we have to say yes to it, but they ought to have at least the same opportunity as others did.
Yeah, what I don't want to get lost in all this is how valuable Nissan is to the county, and we know that they're expanding their production out there to include the new Leaf vehicle, the battery manufacturing plant, and it's just a tremendous asset to our county. We certainly don't want to discourage their presence and their expansion here in our county, that's for sure. But I think all the legislation is doing now is maybe addressing probably what I suspect is an unintended consequence of the legislation that was there. And sounds like down the road we still have the flexibility to address this for the benefit of both sides.
And I concur with everything you just said. And I think what happened was, I'm not speaking for the governor or the economic director for the state, but economic development director, but what they were trying to do was bring jobs in Hamilton County, just like years ago we brought Nissan, or not we, but Rutherford County and different ones brought Nissan here to bring in good jobs for our people. And you know, they're doing the same thing down in Hamilton County, and I support them for doing that, and they've done a good job by doing that. It's just that somehow, like you said, Nissan, that bill, Rutherford County got caught up in that piece of legislation when it may not have been intended for that, you know.
All right, any further discussion on that topic? If not, then we will move on to agenda item number 3, and that is our county attorney legal services agreement. We have the legal services agreement that has been debated previously, I guess. Mayor's had some more conversations, I believe, with our county attorney. We've gotten good input from the Rutherford Neighborhood Alliance, and it's time to, I guess, go over the information that we discovered. We really need to get this moving forward tonight. So, Mayor, I think I'll go ahead and turn it over to you to kind of brief us on where we've been, where we are, and where we might go.
Are there 2 different copies, Mayor?
Hold on, there's only supposed to be one copy there.
Is that yours?
Yeah, that's something I had. Here, I have one more copy back there. And Okay, I'm going to be as brief as I possibly can, but try to put this in as complete perspective as I can. You have two documents I've given you there. Last time you had a legal services agreement. What I've just handed you is, for all practical purposes, the same document you had. If you notice on those pages I give you, the only thing that has changed is where I have highlighted those changes. I'll review those. They're very brief. The first one on the first page, that sentence there basically has been reconstructed to reflect the fact that following that sentence are the actual duties of the general legal services to be rendered by the county attorney. This was in response to what was discussed last time by Commissioner Rogers. The duties of general legal services to be rendered by the county attorney and his staff shall be as follows, and such shall be budgeted and paid for by Rutherford County as set forth in section 2B. That's just a point of clarification. The structure and the substance of that is really no different, okay? But it's just a point of clarification to emphasize that those services to be rendered are following. Now, there are three other pieces that was addressed with some vigor last time. On page 3, the ability for the county commission, upon recommendation of the county mayor, may place certain cases of legal matters that present unique circumstances, etc. These three places all have the same language, and last time there was a recommendation approved to remove the word consent, and approval was not even in there, but I will tell you that that is not acceptable to the county attorney. Now, so what you have here is, for all practical purposes, what has really been on the table and actually approved in September of last year. With those that beginning document back in September, we made a couple of very substantial changes along with some other clarification changes, but the two substantial changes we made, the commission now has the final say on the approval of any outside county attorney to be used, any outside attorney to be used, not county attorney. Now, that was originally, that was changed from the office of the county attorney having that ability to the commission now having that ability. And we have added the language, the commission, on the recommendation of the county mayor with the advice, approval, and consent of the law firm may place certain cases or legal matters that present unique circumstances, such as a conflict of interest or the need for particular expertise with outside counsel. All three of those locations are roughly the same. They just come in a little bit of a different context. We have gone from the office of county attorney making that decision to the commission making that decision upon the recommendation of the mayor with the approval and consent of the county attorney. So I think we've made a major improvement in what we initially had there. Secondly, the other thing that was really of any substance was the fact that in section, let's see, where we had initially, let me get to the actual piece of paper, this is my own writing. Under section 5B, we have changed that language from the original document, whereby the original document, we struck down language that basically said the county attorney and associates shall maintain at their expense professional liability insurance to cover their errors and omissions in the rendition of legal services to the county. We've changed that, struck that, and made it have language to this effect, that the county attorney and associates shall provide at their expense professional liability insurance subject to his availability. The county attorney and associates shall be entitled to be represented, defended, and have liability claims against them paid by Rutherford County in the same manner as other elected or appointed officials or employees of the county. So we have strengthened that, I think, in that we have said that we're only going to treat them just like we would treat you as an elected official or another person as an appointed official or as an employee. Now since all of this discussion has started in September, in a way of any real substance, that's the only two changes we've actually made. Yes, I made a number of changes to change and clarify the initial term from the extended term, and we clarified it that this is an appointment, et cetera. But through this whole course of this discussion and this discovery, we've not actually had any actual other changes of a material nature, except those I just mentioned. Now, I will say that we've been discussing this for an extended period of time. It goes all the way back to September the 5th of '07 when the steering committee started talking about this and started talking about the current private act, et cetera. And even early on in '08, there was some discussion and discovery by some of us in-house about what we were doing, how much we were spending. In May of '09, again, upon this, I guess you could say the direction of the steering committee, when they appointed me and the Commissioner Rogers and Commissioner Daniels to a little ad hoc committee, quote, to study all of this issue, we began that study again at the direction of the steering committee. And on or about June of that year, after we had talked to other counties, visited other counties, and I made forth a very simplistic little document that outlined 4 approaches we could take to where we were, stay where we were, or go to a full in-house, or go through some transition period. We decided upon the process, knowing full well that we wanted to get to an in-house staff process, that we would try to develop something through a transition that would get us to where we want to go without us having to do it all in one big bite. So that's what's happened. Through the course of all of this discussion with the county attorney, they haven't been really happy to do all this necessarily. In fact, I think they have been working with us reasonably well. If you look at this little document here, they didn't make any of these suggestions about how we're going to change the structure of their compensation and what they're going to do. This really came forth largely from me in trying to anticipate some things that I knew some people were not clearly satisfied with. I have suggested these, and we have been able to get them to agree to these changes in their processes and in their compensation. And I just want to review these, just so we were asked to do this, to tell what the potential savings are for this approach, this transition approach. And remember that we'll transition through this initial term whereby this will be in place, and then if things work and you choose, the commission so chooses, we'll be at a point of selecting and putting in place our own in-house staff, and we won't be faced with these kinds of issues in this discussion. But there is a reduction here in the county attorney's annual base cost that has on the table about $50,000 per year. There is on the table and has been agreed to a change in how the cost of the delinquent tax support staff that is now our employee, the first 75% of that employee's base cost would be paid and collected by the county attorney before they would get any fees from the collection of delinquent taxes. And that's $23,000. The bond opinion letters that have been 50% of whatever the typical fees were is reduced to 10% of those fees, which is a potential savings if we issue debt. And we don't necessarily say we're going to issue debt every year, but we may hopefully skip a year this year. That would be about $20,000 a year. The hourly rate that's charged in all cases is $150, except for the person named as the county attorney. And instead of paying $340 an hour, we'll be paying $250 an hour, and just on 250 hours a year, that would be $22,000. So that's an estimate. There's $115,000+ of potential savings here in this arrangement. Through the course of all of this discussion, except for those two substantial things I talked about earlier that we'd already made changes in, I have had only two of our commissioners to come forward and even discuss this with me. So, and in that case, and then we have, certainly respectfully, we've received substantial input from our representative from the RNA, and we appreciate that. But in even these last comments that we've received from them, they are not issues of substance that address the scope of services and the compensation and any of those. Those are things that would, at some point, I think would be even very potentially beneficial if we use those in an employment contract within our, whenever we have an in-staff house attorney or what have you. But they don't change the tone or substance or text of what we really got here. Now, I've said all that to say, to just remind you of where we've come. And in a respectful way, I have had repeated and multiple meetings with our county attorney. And for the most part, we've had productive outcomes. We are at the point of there is really nothing else on the table left for us to negotiate that will be agreed to by our county attorney. More or less what we have here, whether you think it's acceptable or not, is all that we can get our attorney to agree to. It is not a perfect document, but I think it meets 95+% of our needs. It puts us in a position of having clearly defined terms of how we work with our county attorney, which we do not have now. It puts us on the track of laying the foundation and framework for getting us to an in-house staff position at the end of this first initial period. And in view of all of that, and in view of the fact that other meetings that I'm going to have or may be requested to have with the county attorney are not going to be productive, we're not going to result in any future ability to make any real changes to this document. I think we've spent probably about all the time we can need to spend on this, because the rest of the time I have been instructed, and I have been informed, not instructed, that the county attorney basically is saying what I am saying. And I'm asking this group here, unless you have other thoughts, you can do what you choose to do. I think it's time for us to decide, do we move forward or not move forward? And I'd like to suggest that this body put this on the table for a vote and vote it either up or down. If you vote it down, let's forget about this, and you guys can decide what course of action you want to take later. But right now, anything else is not productive. This business about these three pieces that I say they feel strongly about, that you felt strongly about even last time on this consent. The county attorney feels that they have a legal duty and a legal responsibility to do everything they think is prudent to assure. They think they're exposed to liability if they don't have at least the ability to consent to the recommendation that I'm going to make to the Board of Commissioners for your approval. It's not going to be done until you approve it. That whatever attorney we're choosing outside of their agreement is capable, experienced, and competent to represent the county. They think if they don't do that, they have some exposure to liability. This, in their words, is not a negotiable item. They don't want to give up their ability to basically put their best foot forward with respect to protecting their liability interest when we pick somebody else. Okay, that's the end of it. I mean, and I can't say it any more respectfully. I appreciate all the input that everybody has made. And we have a pattern here, along with some of the other suggestions that have been put forth, to give us a strong framework for an in-house staff agreement, employment contract, or however how you want to say it, if we want to continue this process. Otherwise, I think we'll have to revisit this at a later date.
All right, thank you, Mayor. What we'll do, I guess we'll put it to the steering committee for questions and some debate. I know Commissioner Williams is back there, Commissioner Daniel back there. I want to give them an opportunity to put in whatever comments that they want to share with us, and then we'll talk a little bit more about that. So open the floor for discussion. Commissioner Jordan.
Mr. Mayor, I wanted to ask you about the consent, and you've addressed that twice, and I understand, I think I understand, Mr. Cope's opinion. We have added, and I'm not sure how many places, but the word approval has been added and consent has been left.
Correct.
Okay.
They want to
Yes.
emphasize the import that they believe is there with their exposure to liability when we go through this process.
Well, my question really, I guess, is directed to you. I'm not comfortable with that, but I do understand his opinion. Okay, I got it. Are you comfortable with that? With approval and consent?
Yes, I am, because nothing's going to happen until the Board of Commissioners approves it.
Okay.
All this does is potentially put a little bit of conflict between the mayor and the county attorney before it gets to the Board of Commissioners. We can't do anything unilaterally. We have to, it makes it maybe a little bit more difficult for us to work together. I don't have quite as much leeway and leverage as to I can take their advice and then bring the recommendation. I have to we have to work together. If we disagree on the first person, maybe we go to the second person. We have to come together with something we think is in the best interest of the county and then bring it to the commission.
Okay, that's the only question I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Commissioner.
Mayor, on the, I can't remember where you had it a while ago, but talking about the liability insurance when available. What was that, section 5?
Let's see. We got section 5.
Where they shall provide at their expense professional liability insurance. So they are carrying liability insurance if they do like malpractice insurance. Is that type things like that?
Yeah, Arizona missions.
Arizona
They
missions.
have to be malpractice, or means they've done something deliberately, willfully, and for their own personal or monetary benefit and adverse to their relationship with us.
They're providing that insurance.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, let me kind of re-summarize kind of maybe where I am right now, and I'm not real sure I'm going to be 100% clear, so if I'm not, I'll try to make it more clear. But 4 years ago, almost 4 years ago, we looked at what was a document that was a private act that dealt with the county attorney's office. And I'm comfortable in saying that we weren't adhering to that private act and had not been for decades, years and years and years and years.
50 years.
So the mayor wanted us to take a look at the possibility of and the cost effectiveness of our own county attorney's office. And that's when the ad hoc committee was put together, and for a couple of years studied that and came back with a recommendation for us to pursue that with the cost, with some cost savings that would be attached to it. From that perspective, we pursued a private act that would give us, I think, a lot of flexibility in dealing with the county attorney to the point where we would not have to go back to the state and make changes if we wanted to make changes in how we dealt with the county attorney. So it gave us a lot, as a commission, gave us a lot of flexibility, and I like that. Number two, now we're looking at a legal services agreement with our current county attorney to get us through 2012 or way into 2012, which would mean that we've got 2 years to deal with a transition period. And this legal services agreement, the one that the mayor passed out tonight, is going to allow us to continue our relationship knowing full well that is a transition period, while the next 2 years, we, as a commission, will be looking to staff our own legal department. So we'll be dealing with the county attorney that we've had for years and years, but we'll be looking to make that change. And our current county attorney, Jim Cope, and his office has agreed to do that. And so we put together this, which actually is a lot more in an outline type of form than we've been using for the last 20+ years. Actually, we haven't been using a lot of, we've just come to kind of an agreement every other year that we're going to continue to use COPE. So this gives us a lot of savings that we didn't have, but will allow us to continue that relationship with COPE while we go through the transition period. Some of the language that the RNA has recommended for legal services agreement, I like it, and I like it a lot. And I think it could be just a super foundation for us to move forward as we go into our search. But I'm thinking for us to get through the transition period, especially with the ultimatum maybe too strong from Jim Cope's office that he's not going to agree to any of this, and this gets us to where we want to go the next couple of years. I'd move that we approve this legal agreement with Jim Cope, and then once again this year begin that transition period by putting things together and use the next couple of years to do that, and use whatever we want. This is a basis, some information that the RNA's got us to establish a legal services agreement with our in-house employee county attorney. So it's my motion that we accept this legal services agreement that the mayor has passed out to us tonight.
Second. All right, we have a motion and a second. We want to continue discussion a little bit. At this point, I'll go ahead and pick up Commissioner Williams and Commissioner Daniel, any comments that they may want to make. And we might need to get you guys to come up to the table just so they can pick you up on these microphones here, if you want to say anything.
Well, yeah, I'm gonna say some things, and I don't, you need to come up here now. I know this process has been going on for a good long time. The earliest that any of us had the document would have been September. So although it's been a long time that the mayor and some people have been working on this, it's not been at my disposal to look at for that long. Now, some of you may have had it much longer than that. But with having said that, I've started researching a lot of the things, and as Commissioner Phillips says, there's just a lot of problems that have gone on in the past and where we are now with things. But I'm not going to spend an hour that I could talking about all of these issues. I just want to say that, first of all, we have an agreement in place right now that is good for how long?
Till next November 1st of
2011.
2011.
So we have that in place right now based on what we've done in the past. When going through and researching these things, there are potentially a lot of issues with, for example, in this thing, one thing would be the consent issue. What would happen if the county commission and the legal firm or whatever, if they don't consent to if we don't approve who they consent and we're at a deadlock then? If we have to have their consent and they have to have our approval, then we are at an impasse, potentially. Now, I don't know that we would ever be that, because I don't know that any of us would ever have a particular problem with something that somebody recommended. I mean, we haven't in the past. I mean, they've come up and said, we want to use this firm, and we go along with that. So I don't know why the reluctance to where we have to have their consent is, because I don't know of any time that somebody has come up here and said, we recommend this, and for these reasons, that reasonable people don't go along with that, because there are a lot of good law firms out there. So, having been in business for myself for a whole bunch of years, when people get to certain stages, it makes me look at things a lot closer with things. And that's what I've done with this. I don't know why we wouldn't be better off if we did this contract, if we said that we would put in there that we would have a, let's just say 180-day, 6-month out clause to this, because one of the underlying things that's gone on in this whole thing is for us to have flexibility. Now, I've talked to this with Mayor Burgess, and he doesn't think that that's something that would fly too good, but if we're wanting flexibility and have the ability to get our own in-house attorney, let's just suppose that 6 months from now, 8 months from now, the right candidate comes along. I haven't talked to Sonia, but how long would it take you to put together a, what would you call it, a profile and outline for what the county attorney and staff would be to where? Job description, I'm sorry.
It would just depend on how many positions and the nature of those positions.
Well, roughly, I mean, is it a year, is it
Oh, no. I
a
mean,
month?
I would say maximum.
So 2 months for her to put, now have you already started that process to put, okay. So we haven't even started the process of putting together a job description of what, but yet this has been worked on for all these months. So I don't know why we wouldn't move forward to go ahead with Human Resources Department to put together this job description and to have us an out clause in this contract to where if we found the right person, then that would go along. Or the other option would be, let's just go with what we've got, because there are a lot of issues in this thing that are potentially problems, and where, I mean, the savings that Mayor Burgess is talking about on this is potential. But if you look at what we're paying in this thing, we're paying them $6,000 a month as a minimum. There's no cap. Right now we have a cap on it. I don't know how many hours that they spend monthly working. I haven't seen any of those numbers. Maybe Mayor Burgess can say how many that the county attorney works in this. So, but anyway, without getting into a whole bunch of stuff, I would just hope that we could either go with what we have existing and just ride that one out through, because it's worked for 26 years, or just, if we're going to move forward, go ahead and start with Human Resources, get us a job description in this, and have us a 6 month out, or maybe it's some length of time before we lock into a lot of these terms and conditions are very interesting, to say the least. So that's all I have.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Williams. Commissioner Daniel.
Excuse me, I had a
You catch it at a bad time?
lifesaver here. Yes, well, with what we have, we can do the job. I'm not opposed to phasing it, and I'm only here to suggest 2 or 3 things that you might want to consider. There, these are not matters that I'm going to get up foam over or anything. They're matters, though, that we ought to consider, and I see we have been considering the additions of the words. But now we have here a legal firm that has worked for us for all these years and has a lot of experience and knowledge that would be hard to replace overnight. So this phase-in period is the thing that I'm concerned about. And I think we need very definitely to spell out some of these things. And this is making a good attempt to do that. That being the case, I see it as either do what we're doing or else change. And if we choose, yes, we can, to change something, this is a good model to do it. There are ways we can always pick apart any written document. I spent 32 years at the bar doing a good bit of that. And frankly, there's no document we could bring in here that wouldn't have some problems. But the difficulty with it would be, can we live in good faith with the agreement we have? And if we all work together on things and don't get headbutting, then we can make any system work. The problem is, are we distrustful? Do we have reason to believe that we've got a situation that we need to change desperately? We think for efficiency, for keeping, for instance, the allegations that buzzed around some, or the dissatisfactions and grumblings about our representative or anyone doing this for us legally, partly result from misunderstandings. But they were provoked and brought to the surface in the heat of battle, in the Bible Park controversy. And in that controversy, mistakes apparently were made according to the courts. But we can correct those mistakes, and the effort to correct them has been moved off dead center by this agreement. Because it has, then I think we ought to think carefully about where we're going to end up. There are suggestions, and RNA has taken the whole thing apart and proposed a number of other things they feel would be improvements. I just suggest that you look at them and decide on the whole idea, understanding that Mr. Cope has taken his position that it's this or nothing as far as he's signing any new agreement at this time. We did appoint him, and I assume that appointment has been in force and running on. So we're not dead out in the cold, and we're not threatening to throw anybody out in the cold. But we want to be sure we get it right. So, shall we take the step forward? That's the question. Is the proposed step a good step? That, again, it may not be ideal, but it's the best that our chairman and county mayor has been able to work out through negotiation with the county attorney. So do we or don't we? Simply, that's all I have to say at this time.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Daniel. Appreciate both of y'all coming tonight. I know Steve Schrader, Susan Allen are here tonight. They're with the Rutherford Neighborhood Alliance. You all have heard the comments about the county attorney's position on your input. You all have been very helpful through this process. We would offer you an opportunity to come forward, make any comments that you had, with the knowledge that it doesn't sound like we're going to be able to incorporate any of the information that you provided to us into a new document. But if you want to come forward, make any comments you might have, I would ask that you limit those comments, though, to about 3 minutes. So.
Thank you, Chairman, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. I think the one of the things I'd like to reiterate about the comments that the RNA has made on various documents that have been under review is that these have all been for your consideration. And the idea is that we did a fair amount of research on this, and we believe that we made some recommendations that we felt would be a benefit to the county. You need to look at those and make a determination as to whether or not you agree with them, if you agree with them in a timely manner, or if you think some of those things should be deferred and they're used as a foundation for a, say, a job description later on for a local office. One of the things that we did do was we talked with Mrs. Sonia Stevenson, the Human Resources Director, and she indicated that, as she had mentioned before, that she can come up with a county attorney's office on the order of a month or two. And I think that would provide you people with a very good piece of information on the timing that would be required. Obviously, I don't think you should even begin to consider something like that until, I think, after April, when the manning of her office will be more appropriate. But I think the idea is that the county has got a fair amount of flexibility, and we appreciate your consideration in allowing us to comment on some of these documents.
Well, thank you, guys. We sure do appreciate y'all being here and sincerely appreciate your participation through the process.
Mr. Chairman, let me just kind of, once again, show my gratitude and appreciation for you guys sticking into this. They've done some research with other counties that have their own legal services or legal department, and they were able to ask some questions that what's working and what's not working. And that's the reason that I said earlier that some of these things really look just great to me. But the problem that we're having right now is a relationship that's long-term, that we want, some of us at least want to make sure that that relationship exists until we can get our own in-house legal department established and in place. And that's the reason for the motion, so that we can get through this transition period, and then we'll start from scratch as it relates to what we're going to agree to and what we're not going to agree to. And we won't have to negotiate or bargain with some of these things. But all in all, if you look at 26 years of service, you have to say it couldn't be bad, or we wouldn't have continued hiring that firm to do that. And I think that firm deserves a little bit of consideration too. So the transition is something we agreed to a couple of years ago, and that's where we are right now, is in that transition period. And I'm here to tell you that we might do it in 6 months or 8 months, but 2 years are going to go by, or 18 months are going to go by really, really quick. And I do think that that we can take all of the work that a lot of folks have done and come up with a description and a legal services agreement that we can use and incorporate some of these same things, especially the languages that deal with the employment of the county attorney and that county attorney staff, which I think is real important. So it's a good document. But once again, my interest right now is to maintain a good working relationship with our current county attorney and solicit his help in this transition period. And he said repeatedly that he would give us that, and I see no reason for us not to. And Commissioner Williams has raised a couple of red flags in his mind. In my mind, I don't see those red flags the way he does, and he may be seeing them rightly, and I may be seeing them incorrectly, but all of the recommendations that COPE has made in the past have worked out pretty darn well for the company, for the county, and I see no reason to question some of those things at this point in time, and I think that's what Commissioner Jordan and some other folks are doing. You remember a few years ago when we bought a piece of property that was kind of sort of underwater, and we were able to get out of that by looking at,
I don't remember that.
by looking at some outside firms that Jim Cove, and it was resolved to our benefit and satisfaction. So, you know, I would put our faith and trust in Cope to help us through this transition period, and would fully expect that would continue to go on. But the work that our Rutherford Neighborhood Alliance has put into this is invaluable as we move forward, and I'm positive that we will continue to solicit their help as we get into the new document.
Thank you. Well said.
Thank you for your comments.
If this passes tonight, I guess it's probably gonna need, like we talked about coinciding with the private act when it comes back from Nashville. I guess if this passes tonight and goes to the county commission, when do we expect that private act to be back from Nashville? Does anyone know?
I don't know whether it'll be 30 days or 60 days, but we'll bring
This at the
private
same
act
time?
and this concurrently, basically within the same resolution that will come before the county board of commissioners.
Does that need to be in the motion? That it's
That
the way
this-
it's presented it?
This be presented concurrently when upon receipt of the approval of the private act.
Commissioner Sandler?
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to ask the mayor if he wanted to comment on a couple of things that Commissioner Williams and Commissioner Jim, if he would, on a couple of their statements that they made, if you could comment on those. And then I had another question about this here.
Well, as far as what Commissioner Daniels said, I mean, I don't think I have anything that would be different from his opinion there. I'm ready to move forward. I think this is the beginning of a transition that takes us on the journey that the commission appears to have been trying to start and carry out for a number of years now. The only thing that Commissioner Williams said that I will address is the fact that there won't be a disagreement between the commission and the county attorney. The disagreement relatively speaks to the disagreement between the mayor and the county attorney before it's brought. Now, if we reach some sort of stalemate and we couldn't come to an understanding, then that would address what he's saying. But I don't think with all the attorneys that are available that surely any reasonable mayor and any reasonable county attorney could not find somebody they think and agree upon that would be a person that they have confidence in, that they could recommend, the mayor could recommend to the county commission. I just don't think that's has any real potential for any real occurrence.
The only part I don't like about what we're doing tonight, and actually what's going to be passed tonight, is the ultimatums. You know, when somebody comes down and says, this is it, that means no further, you know, we could have taken the old one. You know, I think there may have been the time frame between the old one and this one, you know, that things have gotten a little more, I don't know if it's thought out or heated or discussed or changed minds or what, but it's kind of like, you know, this is it, I'm done, I'm finished, I'm tired. You know, I like our attorney Jim Cope, and he's a great fella, and can't say anything bad about him, and I just love him to death. But I don't like an ultimatum from anybody, and that bristles me up when I hear this is all I'm going to do. You know, I'm done, and especially when we hadn't talked about the rest of the things here as a committee process, you know, type deal. It just that irritates me a little bit. And then what Commissioner Jordan said about, you know, a couple of words here and there, you know, of no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. And that just I don't know. I think everybody's been in a workable manner. Let's get the best plan down, and let's work with it, and because it's really ultimately for the best of our tax-paying citizens here, you know, and for our community to grow and to prosper. So I mean, this is something that's going to carry on out. You know, hopefully for years, but then again, we're under a contract now for 2 years that we just did last year, so that comes up in 18 months we're talking about. So my thought process that we were going to have an attorney in place, at that point in time, but it just it keeps seeming like that's not it. It's going to be longer than that. It's going to be 4 years. It's going to be 6 years. It's going to be, I don't know how long it's going to be, but if we're going to, I don't know how long it's going to take to get an attorney that's going to be able to do all the things and what it's going to take in a legal staff to do what that legal staff has been doing for years. I mean, they have really, really done this county, I think, a tremendous job for ever since I've been here 20 years. But I don't know. Ultimatums, like I said, I think that's about the biggest thing that's ruffling my feathers here. And maybe I shouldn't let that bother me too much. And then I guess all that was statement. But this right here, is this incorporated into this? How is this part of this? Because I don't see that in the...
Everything on that savings is defined in section 2B that outlines how they are to be compensated. All of that is incorporated.
Okay.
Every piece of it.
Do those savings exist right now under the verbal?
Oh, no, under the current arrangement, no, sir.
So if we don't agree to this, we're still at.
We stay where we are.
300,000.
I'll clarify this motion.
Okay.
Commissioner Phillips, I have your motion as, and I'm not sure you want all of this in it, to accept the agreement, the legal services agreement, and this year begin the transition and use the next 2 years to accomplish to an in-house counsel. The legal services agreement to be presented
Let's
to...
just cut it out and say the legal services agreement.
To accept the agreement.
Mayor Burgess passed out.
Okay.
It's got the dates outlined in there.
Okay, but to be presented concurrent with the private act to the commission.
Correct.
Okay.
All right, guys, any further discussion? Ready to vote on it?
I do want to say, Steve, Commissioner Sandlin, I don't know, I didn't, when I heard the mayor giving this, I just want to lay this out there, I didn't look at it as an ultimatum necessarily from the mayor, but more as this is an agreement, and it's agreement that has his name on it, and he's saying, this is what I'm going to agree to. Maybe you want to say it's an ultimatum, but we've been hashing this out publicly at least for 5 months, and even it was heated or they were given and taken until before September, the mayor and the office. And I mean, I don't think, knowing the attorney the way I do, I don't think he means any disrespect or any discourtesy to the commission, but rather just saying, you're discussing this and taking things and changing things, and that's fine if you want to do it, but this is where we are, and that's part of an agreement. I don't think after 26 years the county attorney would be disingenuous or disrespectful to this commission. So I just want to throw that out there. I understand why it could be looked at that way, but I don't want. I just don't think that was the intent. Also, but just before we vote, I would like to echo Commissioner Phillips, and probably on behalf of the whole committee, to the RNA and for all the work you did. I know we didn't use a lot of this information today, but we will for sure. We will for sure. And also to the mayor and to the county attorney's office for hours and hours and days of hashing this out. Appreciate y'all and the county attorney's office being patient with us as we do this. And I guess I'll throw this in there too. Just for record's sake, I guess, since we do this periodically, some of the comments Mr. Daniels was making about disgruntled relationships or disparity between commissioners or individuals in the county attorney's office. Just for record's sake, I believe in October and November we approved the county attorney unanimously for 2 more years. If anybody had a problem, they should have dealt with it then. That's all I'm gonna say. If there's a problem out there, then don't vote for them. So anyway, sorry.
All right, thank you very much. Any further discussion?
Is that your ultimate?
That's my ultimate suggestion.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that will be forwarded on to the full commission then. All right, moving on then to any other business. Have any other business to come before the committee? If not, we are adjourned.